All right, here we are for assignment one. What is instructional leadership? Dr. Jack, July 18th, 2022. All right, so for the requirement for the assignment, we're going to use Avila's 1993 step approach, which is one to review the literature to gain a global understanding of what instructional leadership is, what it looks like in its current state of affairs, and then also the discussion of instructional leadership with colleagues, who am I talking with, and so forth, and what dictates instructional leadership in the world that I live in, and those ideas that I share. And then 3, my own introduction of the definition of what I would consider instructional leadership based on my experiences and a lot of the data and resources that are out there. All right, so for literature review, we know that there are many different definitions of instructional leadership, as there are many different leadership styles and definitions of leadership itself. So with that being said, you have to decipher through those and understand which ones feel appropriate for you in your particular setting, which I'll talk a little bit about my unique background, and so forth. Leadership is a focal point of instruction within schools over management. There's been a significant change in regards to that from the 80s to 90s, and now there's more focus on leadership within the building, whether it's the secondary setting or even at the community college level or even higher education per se. One of the things that I find interesting is the use of pedagogy and andragogy, or andragogy, however you want to pronounce it. It's heard both ways. But the point being is that there are different types of instructions that are effective for different populations of people. The term pedagogy over time has really kind of been the overarching art of, or the art of science of teaching, where its original origins started with just basically teaching children. So andragogy is really more towards the adult learning population, but I think the term pedagogy has really kind of transitioned to more of an overarching term that most educators look at. Then also too, the literature review, something that I found of interest is the highly experiential and active learning strategies through multiple approaches that we'll talk about. A lot of those involve different populations. Who are you teaching? Are you teaching K through 12? Are you in a pre-K setting? Are you teaching adult learners? Are you teaching technical content? What are you teaching? So there's a lot of those different variables that we need to look at as educators to understand to how to effectively, help the audiences that we're working with, and that's going to talk a little bit about the definition, my personal definition, on what I think is important. All right, so who am I talking with specifically? Well, the entire team. I really think it's a comprehensive front, and I think that it truly is a team effort and a collaboration to execute sound instructional leadership strategies. With that being said, I'm talking to department chairs, vice presidents, deans, even college presidents too. My particular role the last 10 years, I worked in curriculum development as a director for career and technical education and workforce development. I've learned a significant amount from our industry advisory boards, and they heavily influence a lot of the decisions we make based on labor market data, but also their voices at the table to help design relevant curriculum, which I'll talk a little bit about here in my personal definition. Also looking at the different modalities, instructional design teams, a lot of different technologies out there obviously are influencing instructional strategies and obviously leadership. How do we offer our students, whoever they may be, the best possible scenario and flexible solutions for their educational goals? So we're talking with those instructional design teams, and then obviously the people that are truly right at the forefront of instructional leadership, which are our resources, our faculty, our teachers, the ones that are digging in the trenches, and they're delivering that message directly to the consumer or the student, whoever it may be. So I truly think it's a team collaboration, and which leads me to my definition. Instructional leadership shall have all multiple core pieces of these parts here. First and foremost, it's got to be real world relevance and application. I know that kind of leans towards the tendency of adult learning, but I feel that it's extremely important for people that seek out education for a variety of reasons to understand its relevance and how they can apply it and use it immediately. And that goes back to being student-centered too as well. I think the design of the curriculum itself or the instruction needs to look directly at who your population is. Obviously, this is a bunch of different conversation if you are working with a kindergartner or somebody in first grade against higher education. I've worked in higher education for the last 14, 15 years, working with student athletes, working with registered apprenticeships, a lot of diversity in those groups. Some are part-time, some are full-time. With that being said, I think you always go back to who your customer is, your student, the population that you're working with. Being an informed, educator, looking at trends and data is very important. Obviously, staying relevant with the research and the literature review is critical as well. So I talked about having a team effort, a collaboration of diverse people looking at the instructional strategies and the leadership to vet that particular curriculum is critical. Now we look at a lot of different state standards that might be, in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, whatever it may be. Here in New York State, particularly, we go through SUNY, which is the State University of New York's teaching system, and that's what we work with at our curriculum committee level. So we vet all of the curriculum, all of the coursework, all of the learning objectives, and the different methodologies that are used within that course through a very strict process. And they are looked at by a pretty comprehensive team of experts in a lot of different areas. So it's fully vetted before it's approved at the local level, at our own school, and then it moves on to state education and then SUNY and so forth. So I think those are the important pieces that we need to look at when we talk about instructional leadership being effective in your particular educational setting. And these will be my resources and references for assignment 1, and this concludes assignment 1.